Welcome to the 26th of July 2011 Frontline Reports podcast from Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, or MSF. I'm Natasha Lua. As drought grips Somalia, a country already suffering the devastating effects of 20 years of conflict, hundreds of thousands of people are losing their livestock and fleeing their homes. Poor harvests, rising food prices, continuing violence and chronic poverty have pushed malnutrition rates to crisis levels. These rates are double the threshold for a full-scale emergency, and the problem is worsening daily. The security situation in Somalia is complicated, but MSF is an independent medical organisation relying on donations from private individuals to provide care in Somalia, rather than on government funding. This means that we, together with the ICRC, continue to be the only medical organisations able to work in many areas of the country. There are hundreds of children and adults arriving at MSF clinics every day. Many of them need expert medical care for malnutrition, often while battling other severe conditions such as malaria and pneumonia. On the 20th of July, I spoke to Somali doctor Hussein Sheikh Qasim, who has worked for MSF since 2003. He explained the situation inside Marere Hospital in the lower Juba region of southern Somalia.
In Marere Hospital, which as you know is run by the MSF where I've been working in recent years, the situation is extremely dire. This is the only hospital in the area, in this part of the country. There are not any other clinics, even mobile clinics, anywhere near here. We are the only hospital. In the hospital we have many departments. It is absolutely full of patients, as you can imagine. Some of the people we see are sick, others just in need of something to eat. The side of the hospital where malnourished people are kept is beyond full. It is full of young children. By young, I mean children under the age of 5 years. Most of these young children are too weak to even eat, so we have to feed them high nourishment milk through tubes. Some of these young children had to walk for over 600 kilometers on foot because their parents are also too weak to carry them on their back or afford the fares. So you can imagine the numbers who don't make it to our hospital, which is also a feeding center for these young children. Those who are lucky and are on their feet when they come to us are admitted to the outpatient department. Yesterday we admitted 300 children under 5. Last Friday we had 400. So on average we get 300 on a good day and as many as 400 on a busy day. Most parents do not bring children until they are too weak, so the numbers will be higher if parents brought all their sick children.
Many children who survive the journey to the hospital are rushed straight to the inpatient therapeutic feeding centre because they are so severely malnourished. On the day we spoke to Dr. Qasim, 151 children had already been admitted, and it was only 1 p.m. In Somalia, MSF also treats hundreds of patients with malaria and tuberculosis, runs a maternity ward and antenatal clinics, looks after elderly patients, and sends outreach teams to towns and villages where people are too weak or too poor to travel to a health facility. But this crisis is about more than numbers. The statistics hide individuals, each one a child with a family, hoping that they will survive. Dr. Qasim told the story of one particular child.
Well, I don't know where to start. There are so many cases, especially malnourished children that have touched me. I will tell you of the last case that we treated. A mother and her husband brought us a 2.5-year-old boy called Yusuf. He was nothing more than bone and skin. He was even too weak to breathe. They were pastoralists and all their animals had died. They told me the child had diarrhea and couldn't eat. When I asked what they were trying to feed him, they told me maize, since they had no any other food. He was in such a bad state you had to listen to his heartbeat through a stethoscope to tell he was still alive. Both his parents had written off his chances of survival and they wanted to leave the child so they could look after their other children. His dad went off to look after the other children while we convinced the mother not to give up. We put the child in our intensive care unit. We had to resuscitate him for 2 hours until finally we opened his eyes. Then we fed him specialized milk and food through a tube. After 24 hours he started moving limbs and we transferred him to a different unit and fed him some more specialized milk. It was at that moment that his mother's face suddenly lit up. You could see that she had hope again. We kept him there for a week, during which we also gave him antibiotics. After 1 week, Yusuf no longer needed to be fed through a tube. He could drink milk on his own and he could say "Mom" and smile back if you called his name. Within 10 days, his weight had more than tripled. After 3 weeks in our hospital, he could play around with other children. His father came to collect him and was beyond happiness. He didn't stop thanking MSF until he left our hospital.
Many people have fled Somalia, making dangerous and illegal crossings into Kenya and Ethiopia in an effort to reach the refugee camps at Dadaab and Dolo Ado. But increasing numbers of people are also on the move within Somalia, abandoning their homes in search of safety, food and medical care. In a country gripped by drought and violence, with a collapsed health service, thousands head for MSF medical centres, travelling up to 600 kilometres or 370 miles on foot. 10 kilometres from Marere, hundreds of families are congregating in a rapidly expanding makeshift camp in Jilib.
This is a growing camp. People are arriving by the minute. There are more than 1,500 people there, and there is no help whatsoever. They depend on the goodwill of their fellow Somalis who live in the town. They don't have food to eat, they beg in the streets and mosques. Those who are strong enough walk to Kismayo to do labor job in the port. They don't have shelter, they live under plastic sheets and trees. They drink from the dirty water from the river. This causes them all sorts of health problems like diarrhea, malaria, etc. Remember, it's malaria high season and they don't have mosquito nets. So the malnourished and weak children do not stand a chance of surviving malaria on top of everything else. We go to Jilib as part of our outreach program where we treat the mostly children and women in this IDP camp. We also give them enriched milk. Most of these people were farmers. Remember, before the droughts there were the floods that washed away all their farms and grain stocks. So not only did they have no harvest, but also they didn't have any food in their stores.
Dr. Qasim is clear about what would happen to these people and his country without MSF and the medical staff with whom he works, and without the support of individual donors who make this work possible.
We would be like a boat that has run out of fuel in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It will mean slow but sure death to millions of people in Somalia.
Find out more about MSF's work in Somalia. Go to msf.org and find the MSF website in your home country. Send any comments and questions about the podcast to msfpodcast@msf.org. MSF is an independent medical humanitarian aid organisation that delivers emergency assistance to people affected by wars, epidemics and natural or man-made disasters in more than 60 countries around the world.